So we're off to Ely, Nevada again.
We are.
This time to ride number 40.
Yes, my favorite. That's my favorite train.
That's one of my favorite of all trains ever.
Yes, the
And
ghost
the Nevada Northern is my favorite standard gauge.
Yes.
You know, there's some narrow gauge railroads that I also, but in the standard gauge arena, this is my favorite railroad of all standard gauge railroads.
Right.
Scenic, historic, museum railroad stuff like that.
Right.
But they're running the ghost train number 40 before they put it away for 3 years.
Yeah.
And at least 3 years.
At least.
At least, because they're doing the 15-year rebuild of the boiler,
Right.
which is required by law and everything. But on top of that, while it's apart, there's a whole bunch of other things that they're planning to do to it. So mid-October will be the last runs of this. And our friend Matt Leverani said they're running it this weekend. So we got in the car and we left.
Right. Nice drive.
So that was good. So check it out, Nevada Northern number 40, some of the last rides for a while. Well, there's number 40.
It sure is. That's such a neat locomotive.
Did you know it's been designated the state locomotive of Nevada?
Well, that's awesome.
And given the history of locomotives in Nevada and some of the restorations in Nevada, that is some high praise. So I said earlier that it's going to be down for 3 years, and Mark says, no, they're going to knock this thing out in 2 years.
Well, that crew probably can do it.
Well, you know, Ed knocked the big boy out in about 2 years.
Right.
So it's just a question of resources.
Exactly.
If you can throw the energy and the resources at it, you can do anything. So this is Engine 93.
Wow.
This is their other operational steam locomotive. It, along with 81, used to reside in a museum just down the street. And this was the first one that they restored from the museum down there, restored in 1993.
Well, awesome.
And now they're restoring 81. They've got a ton of really old first generation, second generation diesels here too. And boy, they're really impressive. What people really love to ride, though, are the steam trains. You know, they've got a lot of other really interesting locomotives here. This is an electric locomotive.
Well, that's awesome.
Because it is a railroad museum, but everything here is off the Nevada Northern. And this is very rare, a wood rotary snowplow. I think there's only 3 surviving wood rotary snowplows.
Oh, my.
The other 2 are at Chama.
Oh, that's right.
And this one doesn't run, but the plans are to eventually make it run.
Well, that would be good.
And boy, I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, no kidding. That's awesome.
Because these are just so amazing to see. This Industrial Works wrecking crane has always been operational. It was operational when they acquired it. But they did a complete rebuild and restoration on it, and they do take this out and show it off. We came for
That was awesome.
That
I'd
was-
really like to see that.
That was so neat to see this. It was rebuilt in part with a funding from Trains magazine.
Oh, well, that's cool.
They gave them, I think it was $100,000 to help with the
gee,
rebuild of this.
nice.
And I'm so glad they didn't repaint it.
Right.
They've just left everything here as is, and that's so much more interesting. Well, people are showing up to go for a ride.
Oh, that is so much fun.
This is so neat. Of course, before we leave, a lot of people are going to want to get a close inspection of number 40 here. It's fun to ride the train, but you also want to get a really good look at the locomotive that's going to be pulling the train.
Exactly.
You know, this has been called the ghost train. I mean, any operational train has been called a ghost train. But this one earned the nickname through its very, very interesting history.
Right.
It was supposed to be scrapped out for the war effort in World War II, or maybe not, but it wasn't. It was held in reserve in case they needed another passenger train, and stopped operating at that point in time, but it just stayed in the shops, fully operational.
Wow.
And according to the legend, the railroad people would take it up to the mine and hide it whenever Kennecott officials would come around. And so by dark of moon, they would fire this guy up and take it up Robinson Canyon to the mine and just stash it up by the mines where the officials wouldn't see it. And in the middle of the night, you'd hear this lonesome whistle of a steam train when they weren't running any steam trains. And that's the legend of how it got the name the Ghost Train. It's a Baldwin 10-wheeler built in 1910 with huge tall drivers.
They're really big.
Really big for passenger service,
Right.
so that it could really pick up and go. Super high top speed for passenger service. Not a lot of pulling potential here, but a lot of speed. It's got a Baker valve gear,
Oh.
which, some valve gears are not that interesting to watch, but some of these valve gears are really complicated with a lot of moving parts. And I find that much more interesting. They're much funner to watch the mechanism all going around.
Exactly.
Of course, like all steam locomotives, it's got a ton of steam-powered accessories on board here.
Bells and whistles, I'll tell you.
And up on top there is a generator, but the interesting thing here is it not only ran the headlight, it actually served as front-end power, you might say,
really?
head-end power, so that electricity could be fed to the entire passenger train for the electric lights.
Wow.
And that's fairly unusual on a steam locomotive. Of course, they're very, very friendly with the engine. They'll let people climb up into the cab if you can make it up the ladder.
That can be difficult.
I can't. But if you can physically climb up into the cab, they will let you up in there. And as a matter of fact, they'll let you run it.
Oh, that's one thing I would love to do. Wouldn't that be fun?
I mean, it's a whole special program.
It
It's
is.
called Be the Engineer. But for an amount of money, they'll take you completely through engineer school. And at the end of that, you can climb up into the cab of one of the steam locomotives or one of the diesel engines, release the brakes, grab the throttle, and away you go.
Wow.
And they'll even let you pull a train.
Nice.
Hopefully you don't get enough slack action
Yeah,
to break something.
yeah, exactly.
There's a knack to running a locomotive. Now they're rebuilding Locomotive 81 right now because they always want to have two operational steam engines. And with number 40 going down here in just a few weeks for a complete rebuild, they need the other locomotive. So 81 is supposed to be finished this spring, and that will bring them back to having two steam locomotives. But then in the spring of 2022, that will give them three fully operational steam locomotives.
That'll be so nice.
And we will be there.
Yes, no kidding.
As we go around the tracks, we ask that you do not mess with the windows, please. They are the 1920s air conditioning system for everyone on board. And if you mess with the latches, the windows can come down suddenly, and these are a lot heavier than they look. So please do not mess with the windows. In a few minutes here, you'll see the 1920s rig rag crossing signals that are featured on the History Channel's American Restoration Show. Now on the right-hand side of the train, you see some of the old copper ore cars that were carried ore from the mine to the smelter, all the way up until 1983. The ore here is very, very low-grade ore, and you have to move a whole lot of it at once to make any money off of it. The smelter in McGill, 10 miles north of Ely, had to process 20,000 tons of copper ore a day to make a profit. 20,000 tons of ore only made 1 ton of refined down copper. Now the locomotive hurrying the train today is Baldwin Steam Locomotive number 40. 40 was built for our railway in 1910 to pull the daily passenger train between Ely, Nevada and Coburg, Nevada.
Lucian, come here. Lucian, look at the little deer. Eating over there.
So here in Robinson Canyon, they've built a Y so they can turn the train around and head back down to Ely. Originally, the line just continued on up to the mine from here. But anymore, the line ends right here with this Y that they've built, and they turn the train around and go back the other way.
Oh, neat.
Kennecott Copper, who owned the entire line, started donating it piecemeal to the people of Ely in 1986.
Oh, okay.
After they closed the railroad. And I heard about that and immediately drove out.
I would imagine.
And so I was actually here as they started going through the buildings and inspecting number 40 and whatnot. And it wasn't long after that that they fired number 40 up and started taking trains up Robinson Canyon.
Well, how fun.
But there was no Y here, so when we'd ride the train up the canyon, we'd go all the way up to the mine. And I don't think Kennecott was terribly keen on that. It wasn't a terribly safe thing to do to have the public showing up at the mine, especially since the mine had been closed. So they built this Y and abandoned the tracks going up to the mine.
Okay.
Well, here at the Y in Robinson Canyon, they've actually built a little western town and so on.
And I never knew that was there because when we see it, it's at night.
Well, we've taken the haunted ghost train.
Right.
And we should come back this year for that.
We should.
It's their Halloween train. But all of the townspeople dress up in costume and haunt the entire line all the way up to the Y. But here at the Y, they put on quite a show, and the Headless Horseman rides in, and they've got a whole little cemetery scene here. They use the western town also for shootouts and other things that they do for certain trains. But the funnest thing, I think, is the haunted ghost train for Halloween.
It is.
And we try not to ever miss that.
Well, this has been built by the merchants in town. Oh, and that's
Old Tunnel. You guys can see the sign right on that side.
That's from the.
Well, as always, a really fun ride.
Oh, no kidding. I'd like to come back.
Well, I say we come back for the Haunted Ghost Train.
Let's try to make that.
It's coming up in just a couple of weeks here, so let's do it.
Right.
Well, so that's number 40.
Uh-huh.
That's a neat train.
It really is.
And it's a neat train on a neat railroad run by a neat group of people.
Oh, they're a close-knit community out there.
Very close-knit. Well, they kind of have to be because they're isolated.
No kidding. That really, I thought I lived in the middle of nowhere, but this is really in the
This
middle
is
of nowhere.
really the middle of nowhere.
Right. They have like three towns sort of that's just there, and then that's it.
Yeah, they're kind of between Salt Lake and Las Vegas, and it's a 3-hour drive in either direction. And
Right.
so there they are.
Right.
And
You better
Anyway.
have a full tank of gas when you go
full
out
tank
there.
of gas when you go out there. Yeah, because you've got a lot of real estate to cover.
160 miles and nowhere to pull off for gasoline. So yeah, it's
Yep.
out in the middle of nowhere.
Anyway, do visit, even though it's out in the middle of nowhere, because oh my heck, what a great and fabulous place. Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, pop over to the channel, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And the easy way to do that is with the blue button. Are we ready for it? Zoink, zoink, over here, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet, and we hope you didn't find it boring. And we'll see you on Tuesday, because we're going to look at some brass engines.
Yeah.
See you then.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.